Hey everyone! Great to be back with you all again. Some may not remember this anymore, but there was a time, particularly in the early 2000s, where websites like Newgrounds.com played a huge part in shaping internet culture and various trends that we'd all come to follow. The site featured heavy use of Adobe Flash, a media player that also used to set the standard in web-based animation, gaming, and all kinds of other web-focused material. While the format itself has long since become obsolete, many still hold a deep fondness for the look and feel of it, as well as the freedom it used to give developers and filmmakers. Alien Hominid was a nice reminder of that time that I remembered playing on my Nintendo GameCube after playing the free version on Newgrounds years back. I remembered it being pretty fast and funny at times, and was curious to give it a try once more and see what I'd think of it now. So, we're going to do just that. Strap in, and we'll see just how well Alien Hominid for the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox 360 holds up today. Originally released by developers The Behemoth in August of 2002, Alien Hominid is a 2D side-scrolling shooter, also known as a run-and-gun game, similar to titles like the Metal Slug series. While starting out as a free PC game on the Newgrounds website, which I'll link to in the description below, it later evolved into heavily improved console ports on the PS2, GameCube, and finally the Xbox 360 with an HD update. You play as an alien named, well, Hominid, who faces off against secret agents, robots, animals like birds and giant worms, and the Soviet Union? Yup, it's all that and more. While there's not a lot of story to the game, it still gives you enough to paint a proper picture. Hominid crash lands onto Earth, where he finds his ship being apprehended by the FBI. He has to take them on in order to get his broken ship back. After successfully rebuilding it, he gets blasted by a missile sent by Russia with the intention of hitting the US. After taking down the Soviets and eventually reaching Area 51, he must face down with multiple people and creatures, including a heavily mutated clone of himself, before being able to return home. Outside of running left and right, ducking and jumping, Hominid can fire his laser at rapid speed or fire a charged shot when you hold down the shot button. He can fire up, down, left, and right, but like Metal Slug, not diagonally. Hitting the attack button at close range will cause Hominid to use a melee strike with a knife. He can also dodge roll left or right, throw grenades, and even jump up on enemies to finish them off with a bunch of zany and over-the-top methods. There are also a ton of other items and environments that can be blown up and cause even more destruction, especially when playing cooperatively with a friend. So the gameplay style and premise sound familiar enough that you've probably experienced it in some form, right? While it may seem that way on the surface, the experience itself is anything but. Not a moment in this game goes by where you don't have a large and animated frenzy of things happening on screen at once. 1 minute, you're fighting a group of FBI agents coming down ropes off of helicopters. The next, you're fighting a giant blob of instant pudding that you have to defeat with water from a fire hydrant. From snowy mountains of Russia to Soviet robot stronghold, it's all just so wacky and great. And that level of wackiness simply wouldn't be as effective without the over-the-top art style that Dan Paladin managed to bring us here. While I understand this style won't appeal to everyone, and may even be seen as more of a relic depending on your age, I just couldn't get enough of it. Hand-drawn animation in gaming is something I always scope out whenever I can, if my love of Cuphead is any indication, and in the visual sense, this game delivers. There are things happening on screen constantly, and a lot of it can be easy to miss while you're dodging and shooting at everything. The game's personality and charm is definitely one of a kind, even if its gameplay isn't the most unique. The game has a total of 16 stages, spread across 3 different chapters. Beating one unlocks the next, and so forth. The game gives you an easy, medium, and hard set of difficulties, a set number of lives, which you can adjust in the settings menu, and the ability to start from any stage you've beaten or reached after running out of lives. And you're going to need the help, as this game is tough. Just like in the Metal Slug games, it only takes 1 hit to lose a life. Once you blow through all of your lives, and the 3 credits you're given when starting up, that's it, you're done. But not to fear, there are some tools that can help you get through it all. For one thing, the game holds a number of power-ups that can be collected from destroyed enemies or from this boy here, simply known as quote-unquote Fat Kid. These give you more powerful blasts with special powers like Ice, which allow you to freeze enemies, or Fire, which lets you burn them to a crisp. These power-ups also grant you a shield that can take 1 hit, preventing you from dying immediately, kind of like in the classic Sonic the Hedgehog games. While the basic stage design is the same each time, fight some enemies, defeat a mini-boss, fight more enemies, and face a boss fight at the end, each stage has such variations in how you get there that it hardly ever feels repetitive. While one stage may have you walking forward toward your goal, another may have you jumping across moving vehicles, or even taking some vehicles to mow down enemies with. One of my favorite sections of the entire game involves Hominid taking control of a giant Yeti while going up against the Soviet army. He manages to stomp, punch, and eat his way through them, something I never got tired of doing. Rampage throwback, anyone? The boss fights themselves are also very fun overall. They each require their own unique strategies and a lot of trial and error from the player the first time around. The scenarios behind each fight are equally unique, as you will never feel like you fought the same thing twice here. The final battle managed to feel especially epic, being separated into 3 parts, and ending with an explosive finale on top of a jet plane. Replayability is also quite strong with this one. Even though the stages and the game in general are short, there are plenty of reasons to go back and replay them all. For one thing, you have the ability to unlock different special hats for Hominid to wear, depending on if you meet the game's criteria for them. Some involve beating stages or bosses, while others have more specific requirements, like defeating a set number of birds, or beating the last boss on the hardest difficulty, and jumping off of the plane just before the screen fades. There's also the matter of trying to beat your high scores by lasting longer as you learn the game's ins and outs more. You're also likely to catch different things you may have missed the first time around, like other segments and animations, or just some funny writing on a building. Even without all of those reasons, I still love coming back to it just to mess around with. It's that addicting. Is there anything about Alien Hominid that I'd say I dislike? A few things, though nothing major or game-breaking. You'll recall that I mentioned a lot of things happen on screen at once at all times? Well, that can also be a bit of a detriment, especially if you're just playing this game for the first time. Things moving around the screen at all times can be extremely distracting if your eyes aren't ready for it, and can lead to all kinds of unnecessary deaths. It doesn't help that enemy shots can also be extremely difficult to see, due to their small size and the speed that they come at you. And speaking of deaths, the game doesn't always respawn you in the best of places. Occasionally I found myself coming back to life, only to die again immediately because I was right in front of another bullet, with little to no time to dodge since you're only invincible for about a second after the respawn. A few of the other boss fights were also just plain cruel to go up against. I think the most annoying one for me ended up being this encounter in the game's 3rd chapter. In order to defeat these electric box things, you have to attack their weak points in an extremely short amount of time before they unleash their attack. If you fail to do so in time, it's almost impossible to stay alive with the electric attack that follows. Memorizing a direct pattern on this one is far more difficult, as it changes constantly, forcing you to revise your tactics in order to reach the proper weak points. I'd probably find all this to be more annoying if the game didn't allow you to start back up from whatever stage you were on. This manages to give the game just the right level of difficulty whether you're a casual player trying to blow through it, or the ultimate hardcore masochist attempting one of those no-hit runs. If this were everything the game had to offer, I'd still be happy to recommend it on its own, but surprisingly, it has even more to it than that. Aside from the main game, there's also a slew of other minigames you can take part in. These range from survival missions to button mashers, to a game where you play as the Soviets firing a large missile straight at the US. Nothing controversial about that. But the real standout is the PDA minigame. This serves as more of an ode to both classic platformers and early Flash games in general. You play as a small stick figure-like character who jumps over obstacles, defeats enemies, and collects items before proceeding to the next stage. Not only is it fun, but there are over 200 of them included, with even more available as DLC in the Xbox 360 version. That's a lot of stages to master. The PlayStation 2 and GameCube versions of this game also came with a PDA level editor, which would allow you to create your own custom stages to share with your friends. This feature was unfortunately removed for the HD version of the game on the Xbox 360, but it's hard to complain when you're still getting quite a value for the $10 asking price. Overall, I believe Alien Hominid is more than worth it. It's one of many examples to showcase that not every game has to be overly detailed in its control scheme or deep and complex with its storytelling in order to feel like a fun and worthwhile experience. While the game is clearly a love letter to Metal Slug 3, it more than differentiates itself from it with its unique visuals and animations, gameplay touches, and boss battles to keep you engaged. And thanks to that hand-drawn style, I believe it also stands the test of time, as you don't have to worry about any outdated 3D models or potentially ugly character sprites. Just nice, clean animations to gawk at. If you've ever played and enjoyed the Behemoth's other games like Castle Crashers or Battle Block Theater, then you owe it to yourself to give this one a spin and see where it all started. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have you played this game before yourself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're feeling generous, please consider supporting my Patreon, where awesome people like Brandon, Thomas, Cielo, Andrew, and Jonathan all help to keep this channel going. Until next time.